一人だけじゃできねえこともある。かぐやとの戦いもそうだったろうが。行くぜサスケ。
Hello guys, AnimeScale here, welcome back, and today we're going to be listing down the strongest duos in Naruto. Now, these duos are ranked somewhat by strength, but teamwork is also a big factor in this list. Each character will be mentioned once, so we'll only pick their most impactful duo rather than listing all of them. So, let's get started.
Deidara, お前は本当の芸術ってもんが分かってないようだな。
The first duo on this list also happens to be the first one we see in Shippuden, and they definitely left an impression. The dynamic between the two is both interesting and funny, with the two constantly arguing over what real art is. Banter aside, in terms of strength, the two are no joke either. Both Deidara and Sasori are easily Kage level with their respective techniques. What makes them special though is that they're probably the strongest ranged duo there is. They both specialize in blowing or dismembering things from afar, without too much risk to themselves. Sasori, of course, is known for taking out a small country using his puppets, and Deidara more or less took on the entire sand village by himself. It's safe to say that the two make a deadly pair. Ginkaku and Kinkaku have probably the coolest backstory in all of Naruto. The two were on a mission to capture the Nine Tails and ended up getting swallowed alive. Rather than just dying as any normal people would, these two actually tried breaking out for 2 weeks. The Nine Tails eventually had to spit them out, and by that point, they'd absorbed some of its chakra by eating its flesh. These two were no joke when they got revived during the war. Not only can they both enter a QB chakra mode, but they're also pretty strong without them too. They wield Sage's tools, all of whom have an effect more broken than the last. Just handling one of them wasn't easy as it requires a lot of chakra. Back when they were alive, the Gold and Silver brothers with their team of elite shinobi managed to even beat Tobirama, more than earning a place here. A and B are pretty much a great duo because they're the only two people who can handle each other. B was the only person who can match A in terms of strength, which is how they became brothers in the first place. A also just happens to be the only person who could stop B whenever he went on a Jinchuriki rampage. As a pair, there really aren't many people who can handle the two. They even had a run-in with Minato where they were both able to, at the very least, bring him to a stalemate. This was when the Minato that was destroying armies by himself, let's just say most people would have run away rather than fight with the Yellow Flash. During the events of the 5 Kage Summit, the two easily decapitated Kisame with a double lariat. Now granted, this was just a clone made out of a white Zetsu, but you can't deny this was very cool to watch. One of the show's oldest rivalries, Kakashi and Guy, are only stronger when they fight together. Not only can they make up for each other's weaknesses, with Kakashi not being great at taijutsu and Guy lacking in ninjutsu, but they also push each other forwards, trying to outdo each other. Both Guy and Kakashi happen to be some of the strongest characters in the war arc. Guy has the 8 gates, the strongest power modifier in Naruto, and Kakashi has one half of Kamui, one of the strongest dojutsu out there. Combined, the two fought everyone, from the reanimated 7 ninja swordsmen to Obito and all the Jinchuriki. They even fought together against 6-Pass Madara. The fact that they even managed to survive says everything that needs to be said. Itachi and Kisame were probably the strongest duo in the Akatsuki. Yes, I mean that, even if we consider Pain and Conan to be a pair. There were a few reasons for this. Itachi is obviously one of the strongest and trickiest people on the planet. With his Mangekyo, he has all sorts of instant kill moves that only very few people can even begin to survive. The only problem is his stamina. He can't really keep up with a prolonged fight for long. This is where Kisame comes in. Kisame probably has the most stamina and chakra in the entire series, comparable to the ones of Naruto and Nagato. This is before everyone becomes a godlike character who could throw meteors around. Kisame is obviously one of the stronger people in the verse, having to be put down by Guy using the 7th gate. Even then, Kisame had to kill himself rather than dying in a fight. The two make up for each other's weaknesses perfectly, and more than deserve a place on this list. This is the point in the list where all the duos are going to be absolutely ridiculous, to the point where hardly anyone could ever hope of stopping them. Nothing really needs to be said about the only person on the entire planet who could stop Madara. Tobirama is hardly a slouch either. having invented plenty of techniques used by everyone from Minato to Kabuto. As a duo, the two fought Madara and Izuna during the Warring States period. They fought against them several times, with Tobirama eventually even managing to kill Izuna. The entire balance of power in this era rested on the two Senju brothers. Yes, Madara and Obito did eventually betray each other. Still, for quite a while before that, the two controlled the Ten Tails and took on quite literally the entire world. They killed hundreds, maybe thousands of ninja. They even inadvertently ended up killing Neji. They were a civilization-destroying threat in every sense of the term. They even ended up destroying the shinobi headquarters hundreds of miles away from the battlefield. All of this was done relatively casually. Their goal was never to kill as many shinobi as possible. If they were really trying, they would have definitely done a lot more damage than they did. Frankly, they were a much bigger threat than the Ten Tails itself was, which says it all, really. The two mostly fought on their own while being on the same side. It's not like they ever needed to, but they can even combine their jutsu, as they did here. Now, before revealing the top three, here are some honorable mentions. Zabuza and Aku were the first major threat we get to see in Naruto. As a pair, the two are more than strong enough to give any regular jonin more trouble than they can possibly handle. Unfortunately, they had the misfortune of running into Team 7. Still, for nostalgia alone, they're worth mentioning, since they are the only duo here that died for each other after all. Yes, Idan and Kakazu are one of the more interesting Akatsuki teams. As a pair, their whole gimmick is exploiting their versions of immortality. Kakazu was strong enough to survive fighting the first Hokage, while Idan managed to kill Asuma. They're not really as strong as Deidara and Sasori as a duo, which is why they're placed here. Consider this entry as more of a placeholder for when these two get a lot stronger in the future. Even now, the two are a very deadly pair, much like their parents. The two have a fighting style where they don't even need to talk to each other. Everything just falls into place. Their teamwork gave us one of the coolest looking sequences in all of Boruto, where the two work together to hit Boro with Sarada's first ever Chidori. Seriously, if you're someone who's been sleeping on Boruto, these few minutes are really worth looking at. So at the number 3 spot we have Momoshiki and Kinshiki, one of the strongest duos that have ever walked the planet. The two never displayed great teamwork, but they are just too strong to be placed lower on this list. The two easily defeated Bee and gave the 5 Kage a run for their money. As I just said, they never show much cohesion during their fights, but Momoshiki eating Kinshiki counts as teamwork, right? Hagoromo and Hamura were the strongest people around after Kaguya. Being her sons, the two were blessed with power only she could compete with. We don't know the extent of the two powers besides just the basics. We can only really imagine the kinds of crazy abilities the two had. What we do know is that the two were obviously strong enough to fight and seal their mother the first time around. The only reason these two aren't the number 1 entry here is that at this point, Hagoromo was not the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Because of this, they only just barely lose out to
Sasuke!
What can we possibly say about the two that hasn't been said before? Naruto and Sasuke are the last line of defense, not for their village, but for the planet against literal godlike aliens. The two have both halves of the sage's powers and eventually learn to master them by the time they become adults. The two are also almost always perfectly in sync, able to use their combined powers to win or survive against foes who would have definitely killed a lesser pair. Their level of communication is almost on another level, with them not even needing to talk. Combined, the two have their own jutsu that are even stronger than all the continent-destroying techniques they can use individually. This includes everything from the Susanoo-covered Kurama avatar to Naruto's Rasen Shuriken covered in Sasuke's Amaterasu. There's simply not any duo you can put above this one in the whole show. So that's it for this list. Let me know what you all think about where I put everyone. Also, if I missed out on an important duo, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. Right, this is AnimeScale out. Bye.